This podcast is brought to you by New Life Ministries.
Welcome to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I'm your host, 𝙃𝙏𝙚 West. On this podcast, you will hear honest conversation and encouragement for living a life of sexual integrity. Let's get to today's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Every Man's Battle podcast. We are so glad that you've joined us today. My name is 𝙃𝙃 West. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the Central Florida area, and I get to serve as the presenter at the Every Man's Battle workshop, and I've been with the Every Man's Battle intensive since 2009. And I'm joined with, as always, by Doug Barnes.
Happy podcast day yet again, 𝙃𝙃.
Happy podcast day. It's a good day.
It is an awesome day. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Dallas, Texas, and I've been working with the intensive since 2001, but I've been facilitating small groups, the breakout groups, since 2006. So it's just truly my honor to be here. So I'm excited for our topic today.
Me too. You know, it's, I think we say that every time, but it is right. True every time.
Yeah, well, it is.
It really is. I mean, there hasn't been a topic yet that it's like, I wish we weren't talking about this. But today, I don't know, it's particularly true today, but on a different level. So for the audience, we are going to be talking about the impact of sexual abuse today. And I'm excited about the topic because I hope that it is a stepping stone toward healing and freedom for many people in the audience. But I'm also aware that this is a pretty sober topic. This is a pretty challenging topic, and certainly not one that we're going to resolve or cover completely in 30 minutes. Like, that's just not going to happen. We're gonna touch the tip of the iceberg today, but we're going to invite you to continue if this is your first time, or let this be maybe a reminder of the need to continue on your healing journey. And I'm going to borrow a ton of what we talk about today from a book by Dan Allender called 𝙏𝙝𝙚 Wounded Heart. And most therapists who've done any work with survivors of sexual abuse, especially people who were childhood victims of sexual abuse, will tell you that's like the Bible of sexual abuse information. Like that's really where we all go. And it's one that, I mean, I've recommended it to so many clients. I've even bought copies and given them out to people that I've just met in life, because somehow, you know, in the conversation, they share something and then, tell me more about that. And sure enough, that's part of the story. And so there's the book, 𝙏𝙏 Wounded Heart. There's also a companion workbook that goes with it. And then there's a third book called, I think it's called Healing the Wounded Heart. And really, I would recommend all three of those. But I would also say, and I'll probably repeat this throughout the episode today, it's not enough just to read the books and go through the workbook. If you experienced childhood sexual abuse, you really owe it to yourself to pursue therapy with a trained therapist who has experience with trauma therapy, who understands sexual abuse and can help guide you, because this is complicated. It's super complicated. So all that to say, we're taking on a big task. We're excited about the topic, but it's not an easy topic. And I say it at the front because there may be people in the audience who you may not be ready to listen, or I just want you to know that this could trigger some emotions for you if you are a victim of childhood sexual abuse. And so just be aware of that this is not going to be a light or easy episode to listen to.
Right. And it's not going to be a one size fits all, right? It's not going to be
that's
everybody
so
fits
important.
Every dynamic and every point and all that. Everybody's situation is different, and everybody's experience has been different. So this is a 5,000 foot umbrella looking level of maybe like you were saying, 𝙃𝙃, which is really good, a starting point for so many. Maybe it's just a starting point to maybe just say, hey, this comes up for me. maybe I need to consider getting some help for it. And maybe that's the catalyst to begin the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let me also say, it might be helpful to go back and in season 1, way back, you have to go into the archives, but back into season 1, we did an episode. It was actually episode 2, Understanding Shame and Guilt. That would be a good precursor or setup for this episode. So if you've never listened to that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to that one. Also, it probably would be helpful from this season. We did episode 3 was sharing your story with family and friends, and that aired on January 20th of this year. That might be also helpful to go back and listen to. And actually, the episode in season 1 aired on January 1 of 2024. So you can go back and find those and listen to those. That may be helpful in setting up some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So
good.
All right. So shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difficult subject. So, okay. So let's begin just to have as a point of reference about understanding a little bit of the link between abuse and sexual addiction. Again, not a one size fits all, but there are links. And so can you JJ just begin by helping us understand the link between childhood sexual abuse and maybe some behaviors that show up in adulthood and maybe even going to the point of affecting our identity.
Yeah.
Our true identity.
Great starting point. So whenever we experience abuse, and especially if it's sexual abuse, but anytime we experience abuse, it distorts our sense of ourself. And especially with sexual abuse, it can distort our sense of our own body, and it can distort the way we view relationships. Because understand that for most people who experience sexual abuse, it's at the hands of someone they know. It's not a stranger. It's usually someone they know, someone that they have some sort of relationship with. And so this person that I knew, that I trusted, or that I should have been able to trust, that I should have been able to count on, that should have cared for me, not only are they not doing that, but they are doing that, but in addition, they're mistreating me, right? They're doing the opposite of what they were supposed to do. And so now I have this very strained, weird dynamic in this relationship, in one of my primary relationships, which then affects the way I do relationships moving forward. Like, I don't know who to trust. I don't know if I can trust anyone. I don't know if I can trust myself. And so sometimes survivors of sexual abuse will actually disconnect from their bodies. It's a form of dissociation. They'll disconnect from their bodies so that they don't have to feel that pain and that shame. Or sometimes they will use sex as a control mechanism, to control others, to feel wanted, whatever. But they'll use sex as a control mechanism. And I think the third point that I would want to make is that whenever we experience sexual abuse, it creates this kind of deep core level shame in us that we walk around with. And whenever we have those deep core messages of shame, they often lead to compulsive behaviors. So sometimes that is compulsive behaviors like, your standard, OCD type of stuff. But sometimes those compulsive behaviors are sexual addiction behaviors. And so it might be compulsive masturbation. It might be compulsive pornography viewing, or any number of other ways that we might act out. But there's this compulsivity to the behavior.
Right. Well, that's a great segue, because some of what you're speaking to, especially when it comes to shame, is experiences in our lives that are unresolved, or messages that we tend to carry with us about who we are and my worth and my value. So talk a little bit about the trauma, unresolved trauma, and how that could possibly fuel what we talk about so often, which is sex addiction or sexual integrity issues, the big gamut of of what the
Right.
work that we do.
Right. Right. Exactly. So you have to understand that addiction is so often a coping strategy. It's a way that I escape from pain, I escape from powerlessness, I escape into numbness, right? So I'm using my addiction as a way to cope with something going on in my life. And so if I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, I'm walking around with this unbelievable shame that I feel about myself, that I'm broken, that I'm used, that I'm no good, that I'm awful. And that never feels good, right? No one wants to feel that way about themselves. And so we turn to addiction as a way to numb that. But also, here's the interesting piece. To me, it's interesting. I don't just turn to the addiction as a way to numb out. I also turn to the addiction as a way to explain what it is that I'm feeling inside. Like I want validation. I don't want. It's like I need validation
Yeah.
that I really am awful, that I really am messed up. That, you know, because what does shame tell me, right? Shame doesn't say I messed up. It's I am messed up, right? Shame doesn't say I did something wrong. Shame says there's something wrong with me. So I'm walking around with that belief about myself, and my addiction verifies that. It validates this feeling. So I'm not crazy. I really am this messed up.
We hear that a lot at our intensive
Mm-hmm.
about the really striking coupling of guilt and shame and how it affects us. And
Mm-hmm.
now we add a
Mm-hmm.
third rung to that of, okay, could there be abuse
Right.
somewhere in our history
Right.
that helps strengthen that coupling of that guilt and shame?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think about it, like when you were in school, you know, if you walked up to a group of kids and they were all, you know, like interacting, and you walked up and you tried to interact and they wouldn't interact with you, and as you walk away, they all start laughing.
True
Like
story. Yep.
you're sitting there going, why are they laughing? What's going on? But if instead you walked up and they just said, hey, you're ugly, we don't want to talk to you. Hey, you're stupid, you're slow, you're whatever. Like that doesn't feel good, but at least I have a reason, I have a name, right?
Right.
Whereas if they just ignore me and I'm shut out, now I'm left with why, what is it about me that's so unappealing, right? And that's what shame does, is it leaves me with this feeling of there's something wrong with me and I don't know what it is. And so my addiction becomes the thing that go, oh, this is it. This is why I'm so awful, because I look at porn, I masturbate, I go to strip clubs, I have affair partners, I whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, great example. That's a great
Mhm.
example. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
shift gears a little bit just for the sake of
Uh-huh.
time. Again, this is a
Sure.
5,000 foot level, right? So
Uh-huh. Right.
so let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about some of the coping styles and maybe some emotional stuff here.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the abuse responses, especially
Mhm.
according to Allender and his
Yeah.
book? He talks about three in particular. So
Mhm.
talk a little bit
Yeah.
about those as you kind of explain this.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So we've got the controller, we've got the compliant, and then we've got the contaminator. Okay. Controller, compliant, and contaminator. The controller is the person who uses dominance to feel safe. They're going to be in control of everything. They might use aggressive behavior to control. They might use compulsive behaviors to control, but they're making sure that the way they feel safe in this world where they don't feel safe because internally they don't, the way they try to make themselves feel safe is by being in control of everything. Okay. The compliant is almost the opposite of that. The compliant person that's the people pleaser. That's the person who always avoids conflict. They're constantly seeking approval of others. I need to know that you're okay in order for me to be okay. That's how I feel safe in the world. Right? I don't feel safe inside. I feel safe. I can pretend to feel safe if I think you're okay with me. And so I do what you want. And so sometimes they will actually seek approval through sex, right? They're looking for
Mhm.
that validation that you're okay with me, you like me. If you're having sex with me, then you must be okay with me. right? Okay, so we got the controller, we've got the compliant, then we've got the contaminator. The contaminator feels this inherent damage. Like they know that they are broken, that they're bad. And so what they do is they'll even kind of self-sabotaging sexual behaviors. This might be really extreme acting out, very risk-taking behaviors, might be, or it might be self-sabotage, like they do something to ruin every relationship because they feel on the inside, because I'm contaminated, because I'm broken, eventually you're going to reject me. Eventually you're going to get sick of me. Eventually you're going to mistreat me. You're going to, and so I don't want to sit here waiting and waiting and waiting for that to happen, because that's miserable. So I'll just fast forward the clock and get it done, right? And so I self-sabotage. All right, and so that shows up kind of in three different ways. I like the way Allender puts it, because he says there's kind of these three different motifs or personalities that show up, and they're really not personalities. They're ways of survival. They're survival styles. Okay, so you've got the good girl, the tough girl, and the party girl. And by the way, there are male expressions or counterparts of this. Okay, and I'll get to that in a second. But so okay, so good girl, tough girl, and party girl. And again, these aren't stereotypes. They're like these deep-rooted trauma patterns that show up. And again, they'll show up as men too. But the good girl is someone who, they're coping by trying to be perfect. They're trying to be perfect morally. They're trying to be perfect spiritually, emotionally, relationally. They're the ones that they follow all the rules. They do everything the way they're supposed to. They show up at church every time the doors are open. They might even lead Bible studies. Like they look like really great Christians and really terrific neighbors. Okay. But underneath, deep down, she's terrified of messing up. She's absolutely terrified of messing up and not being good enough. Because if I'm not good enough, then you won't accept me. If I'm not good enough, if I'm not perfect, then you're going to mistreat me the way that I was mistreated before. Now, this isn't a conscious thought. This is subconscious stuff going on. Okay. All right. So that's the good girl. What's the male parallel? For men, it looks like the moral achiever. It looks like the religious performer. It's someone who hides behind good works and discipline and spiritual authority, and they often will use like hyper religiosity as their armor. Okay, so that's the good girl or the moral achiever. Okay, all right. Next, we've got the tough girl. Okay, the tough girl is the one who doesn't trust anyone. Okay, she's strong. She's independent. She's probably even intimidating. Like interacting with her, you're probably like, "Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to deal with you." Right? Like vulnerability is not in her vocabulary. Okay, no vulnerability whatsoever. She's basically sending a message: you will not ever hurt me again. Okay, you will not ever hurt me again. She tends to either dress down her femininity, or she'll like weaponize it. Like she'll use her femininity as a weapon to control others. Okay. All right. So that's the tough girl. What's the male parallel? Male parallel is going to be the lone wolf, the protector persona. It's the guy who controls everything and everyone around him. He might do that through anger. He might do that through intimidation. But whatever he does, he's going to avoid emotional intimacy. Like that's not going to happen for him. He's not getting close. He's not letting anyone get near him, right? He's stiff-arming the world. Like, no way are you going to get in, because if you can't get in, right, you can't hurt me. Okay. And so he'll often channel all of his pain, all that shame and pain that he's walking around with. He'll channel it into anger, competition, or success. Okay. All right.
Good.
Final category is the party girl. The party girl is the one who looks like she's having fun. Life of the party, looks like she's enjoying life. She's flirty and free and maybe even a little wild, right? But she's often using sex or substances or attention to try to fill that deep hurt, that longing, that hole inside of her. She's not bad. She's not morally bad. She's wounded. And she's looking for anything and everything to try to put a Band-Aid on that gaping wound, right? But nothing ever works. And so we keep trying and we keep trying and we keep doing more and more and more with diminishing effect, right? Okay. What she's learned is that the closest thing to being loved is being desired, right? So that's what she goes for. She goes for trying to be desired in order to try and feel loved, because that's what her little wounded heart from childhood was, longing to be loved, and it was twisted into the way I love you is that you're desirous, that you're sexually desirous, right? Okay. Male parallel. Male parallel would be the charmer, the addict, the performer. He's going to constantly seek validation through sex, through attention, maybe through risk-taking behaviors, but it's just all a mask to hide that deep down shame and pain and this belief, this core belief that he is unlovable.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff right there.
Wow. There's a lot to think about in that. Yeah. I mean, as you're speaking through that, I'm running through decades of my life thinking, okay, there's a box there, there's a box there, there's a box there, and looking at those.
That's such a great point, Doug, because it's not like we become just one of these. These are survival strategies. And so we can be all three of them depending on the moment, depending on the situation, right? So I have been all three of those at different points in my life.
Right, and how we've learned to adjust at different points in our life based upon our outward situations and circumstances. Right.
The Restore Intensive is designed for a woman dealing with a man's sexual addiction issues.
Restore gave me strength. I met up with a group of women that are going through things that they had no control over.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Intensive will equip you with support and tools to help you through, and it's coming to a city near you. To register to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or online at newlife.com.
I mean, we've talked about shame in other podcasts, and shame, as we all know, especially at the intensive. Right. And I don't know about your practice, but in my practice, shame is a huge subject all the time.
It's only like 95% of the time.
Right. And so as we're talking through the effects of abuse and addiction, how does shame, in our context today, how does shame keep people stuck in addiction, and maybe even the secrecy behind hiding that addiction or even hiding that shame?
Right. Secrecy is the key, right? Because shame, no matter what the source, shame always tells me there's something wrong with me, right? It attacks my identity. Okay. So I feel like there's something wrong with me, but it is reinforced by the secrecy. So first, the secrecy of the abuser saying, you can't tell anyone this, or insert threat, right? So there's secrecy there. Then you carry that forward as you're growing up, and then as an adult, you continue to carry the secret, right? And that secret reinforces the shame. No one can possibly know about this. If they did, it would be the worst thing. They would know how awful I am. Okay. So it's reinforced by the secrecy, but it's also reinforced by sometimes you do tell and it's minimized. Nothing. Or denied. Exactly. So you finally tell mom or dad, hey, so-and-so has been touching me. Oh, that can't be true. You must misunderstand what he was doing. Right. Or the the stepdad is sexually abusing and you tell mom, and mom stays with him and doesn't protect you, right? And so there's a minimizing of the problem, which then reinforces this belief. So I must be the broken one, because nobody in my orbit, nobody in my world is stepping up and saying this is wrong or doing anything about it, right?
Which also teaches the compliant style, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Well, you can go, one way or the other, right? You can go into compliance, go along to get along, or rebel, right? I'm going to be,
right.
I'm going to be angry and hard, or I'm going to be the party girl and rebel, whatever. Like you can have any one of those responses to that, but you're right. It reinforces that shame, and then the survival style. And here's the insidious part. It's one of the insidious parts of sexual abuse, is that secrecy then isolates me from the very sources of help that I need to heal. Mm-hmm. I keep it a secret. I don't tell anyone. And then I never encounter the redemptive healing that God has for me in community, because I'm never allowing myself to be that real with anyone. It's tragic.
Right. Call it family secrets, right? And family of origin work, right? It's the secrets that we keep that keep us stuck in that, that only secrets are secrets, but this is one that's close to me, and it hurts so deeply that it goes to my identity, like oftentimes.
Yeah. And it does go to our identity, because so oftentimes the abuse happens when my identity is still being formed. Right? When my personality, my view, my self view is still being formed, still being shaped, and this abuse is happening. So it's getting interwoven with what I believe about myself.
That confusion, that identity confusion of who am I really, where's God in all of this? So yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears now, just because we're getting down in time here. So let's switch to okay. So let's find some healing here. We've talked about some of the styles. We've talked about how the shame permeates our lives, and maybe how we've dealt with this throughout much of our lives. So let's look at what does healing really look like here? Because I mean, just like we all say, JJ, this is all great information, and you're telling my story in some respects and in certain instances in certain decades, but now what do I do? How can I find this healing, or even hope for healing, that I've been struggling with this for however many years?
Right. Yeah. Great question. So for me, healing starts with telling the truth about the abuse, naming it clearly and compassionately, but telling the truth about the abuse, not hiding from it anymore, not pretending it didn't happen, not minimizing the impact. I mean, and it's so easy to do that. I mean, I'm trained in this, right? This is my livelihood, and yet I'm still coming to grips with the impact of my own abuse. And it's hard for me to even say that word at times, because I know people whose stories of abuse are far, far greater than my own. People who were serially raped by their father. Horrible, horrible stories. And so my being exposed to pornography at a young age doesn't feel like I can't say that's abuse when this over here is abuse, but it is. It's abuse, and it had an impact on me. And I'm just coming to terms with that reality, right? And understanding it more and more. So it's, and I say that because it's a journey. It's not a point in time. Oh, I figured it out. I named it. And now I'm done. Moving on.
We're done.
What's for breakfast? Right? Like, no, this is an ongoing thing, and we unpack more and more of it. But it starts with telling the truth about the abuse, naming it clearly and compassionately. Okay. Second is, and by the way, I would recommend, again, doing that in the context of therapy. I think that doesn't mean that has to be the first conversation. I'm just saying at some point that involves therapy.
Right, because that's scary.
Secondly,
that is very scary.
It's very scary. Yeah. Secondly is learning to feel the hard emotions, learning to feel the anger, the fear, the grief, not hiding from those. They're hard. That's really hard work, but I can't get to healing if I always avoid those hard emotions.
Hard emotions
like grief, anger, fear, right? Like those are a shame. Like I want to avoid those. I don't want to feel those, but I have to grieve what was lost when I was abused. I have to let myself feel the anger. And by the way, not just the anger toward my abuser. I have to also express my anger toward God and my doubt toward God. You talked about just a few minutes ago. That question of God, where were you? Right? That's John. If you go back and reread John chapter 11, okay, raising of Lazarus. We're all familiar with the ending, but go back and read the beginning when his sister sent word, and Jesus is close enough to get there, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits until Lazarus dies. Imagine you're Mary and Martha. Jesus hangs out with you all the time. You've seen Jesus do amazing miracles all over the place. You've seen Jesus do incredible feats. Your brother's sick. This would be nothing for Jesus, but he doesn't come. He doesn't come. Lazarus dies. And we read the text when he shows up, and Mary and Martha both say, "My Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." As if that's the way they said it.
Right.
That's not the way they said it. They said, "Where were you? Why didn't you show up for us? We've seen you. We've seen you move in power, and you didn't show up. And now he's dead." Right? Where were you? That's the cry of an abandoned heart, right? And that's what we have to wrestle with our abuse. Like, we have to be real about that. We can't hide from that. And there's so many church gatherings where that's not allowed. No. You can't call into question God's goodness and God's faithfulness. You can't do that. But we have to be able to name that, because that's what was happening. Why, God, did you let this happen to me? Why did you let me experience such pain? Right? We have to be willing to do that. We have to go into those dark places, and it's scary. I mean, it's scary. I'm not even doing therapy right now. I'm just talking about how to do it, and I'm already emotional. Imagine if I was like tackling my own story right now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we gotta be able to tell the truth. We gotta be willing to feel the hard feelings, and then we gotta be able to start rebuilding trust with God. Where were you? Right? We gotta let Him interact with us on that question, but also rebuilding trust in ourselves, that I can be worthy of love, and in others, that there are people in the world that I can trust. That takes time. Yeah.
God, self, and others.
Yeah, God, self, and others. It always comes back to God, self, and others.
We say that so often. I mean, it's almost in all the things that we do, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So how do faith and therapy work together here in this process? You talk about Allender's book, and so how would you describe putting the work, with a coach, counselor, therapist, whatever we're working with, and that faith? How do they go together in this healing process?
Yeah. One of the things I love that Allender does in the book is he emphasizes the fact that God suffers with us. He's not a distant God. He's not a punishing God. He's a God who enters into our pain with us. And that's how he makes sense of our pain. That's how he makes sense of our broken story, is that he's the one, he's Emmanuel, God with us, not just God with us in the manger, we're all sitting around singing Silent Night, that he is the God who is with me in all of my pain and in all of my shame and in all of my story. So that's a critical piece of the story. A critical piece of the puzzle is understanding a God who suffers with me, and then what therapy does is it creates a space for honesty. It creates a safe place where I can be honest about what really did happen in my story. Um, uh, and we need that. We need those safe places to
Critical.
talk about
Yes.
what really happened in our story, and then to be able. And this is why I would encourage to work with a not only a trauma informed therapist but a Christian therapist who can then bring in faith, because what faith does is it then restores hope and purpose to my story and to my healing. So I'm not just telling the story and then, okay, now you know my story, great, right? But God wants to make good on my story. God wants to redeem my story, right?
Right.
And then finally, healing is relational. We're wounded through broken relationship, but we're healed through redemptive relationship. And so not only one-on-one therapy, that's a safe, redemptive place, but also group therapy, as well as building relationships with others that are good and safe.
Right. Healthy.
Yeah. Healthy.
Okay.
Exactly.
Some final thoughts here. So let's wrap this up for today. So for someone who is struggling with sexual abuse, sexual integrity issues, something that we talk about a lot at our intensive, and has trauma or abuse, sexual abuse in their past somewhere, doesn't matter where, somewhere. What's one just next step that they can take to begin to have that confidence of healing and wanting to really change the course for the rest of their life?
All right, I know we're short on time, but I'm going to give you 3. All right. So the first I already mentioned, which is tell someone. Find someone who's safe and begin to tell your story, because shame loses its power when it's brought into the light. Okay, so we need to tell our story. Number 2, consider counseling with a trauma-informed Christian therapist. Like, really, really consider that. Not just, maybe one day. Like, no, find someone in your area. If you don't have someone you already are working with, don't already know, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask about the counselor referral network, and that you need someone who is trauma-informed Christian in your area. Find someone to work with. Okay. So consider, but not just, maybe one day I'll get to it. Like, no, this week, call and start that process.
Commit.
Find out the rates, find out what you need to do, fill out the paperwork, get started on that. And then finally, you need to know that you're not alone. You're not alone in this. You're far from the only one, and you're not too far gone for healing. And so look into going to a Restore workshop. Look into going to an Every Man's Battle intensive, so that you can have that experience of community. Look into healing as a choice. Like, find that next step that's going to allow you to experience community. You might need to go to look into like a Celebrate Recovery or SA, or certainly if you go to Every Man's Battle, you get to be part of the Sustained Victory. If you go to Restore, you can be part of the Sustained Healing. Like, you need to involve yourself in community in order to experience healing.
Right. And we hear that a lot, or at least I do in the breakouts. I've never ever told this to anyone, and they feel the trust and honesty to be able to share that with their group, and how it's honored and really respected, that you're going to honor us out of everybody on the planet to be the first people to hear this horrific stuff that usually proceeds afterwards. So it can be a huge opening up of into me see. It's to really be seen, maybe for the first time for some folks. So that's really good. That's really cool.
Yeah. I know we're short on time, so I'm going to close with this thought. Sexual addiction often feels like it's the fire, right? Like, it's the thing that's causing all kinds of destruction, just consuming everything around me. But abuse is often the spark, right? It's the thing that started the fire to begin with. And And when we do the work, like when we go through the Wounded Heart, we go through the workbook, we work with a therapist. When we do that, we're helping ourselves face the past, but we're not staying there. It's not, oh, I'm going back into the dark crevices and then I have to live there. It's I'm going back there so that I can be free from it. When I refuse to go back there, what happens is it continues to control. It continues to dictate my life. And so we don't want that. We don't want you guys, listen, we don't want you to continue to live in this shame cycle and where your abuse is so dictating how you're living today. But it requires being able to go back to those dark places. Whew, Doug, this was a good starter. Heavy, but a good starter.
It's heavy.
Next week, can you believe this? Next week is our final episode of season 2.
I know. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe it's coming to that close.
Yeah. So next week we're gonna tackle the question: what would you tell your younger self if you could go back and give advice to your younger self? What advice would you give the pre-recovery self, right? So we're gonna tackle that. We're gonna do a recap of season 2, and then set the stage for season 3. It's hard for me to believe that they let us even do one episode, much less 2 whole seasons. And now we're talking about season 3. But man, it's been so good. I've so appreciated it. Thanks again for today and your guidance and your leadership. And guys, this is hard work, but if we'll do the work, if we'll give ourselves to it, it will allow us to continue to walk in integrity, which is what we all want.
Amen.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is just one of the many ways we can encourage and help you. If you're looking for more help, visit us at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Please remember to review, like, and share the podcast as it helps others find us. If you have a comment about this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at embpodcast@newlife.com. See you next week.